A Hells Angel biker visited his son unannounced. What he discovered was a parent's worst nightmare, a betrayal that demanded an unforgettable response. This is a story about the line between bullying and war, and the fearsome moment a father's love becomes a force of nature. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. Doc pulled his Harley up to the curb of Oak Ridge Middle School, an hour earlier than usual. The shared custody schedule was a map he followed with military precision, but today, a gut feeling had twisted in his stomach since dawn. His son, Sam, had been too quiet on the phone last night. Not just quiet, hollow. Sam was small for 12, a shy kid who loved drawing motorcycles more than riding them, and lately, he'd been pulling into himself like a turtle. He killed the engine, the sudden silence feeling heavy. He didn't go to the main office. Instead, he moved through the familiar halls, his heavy boots oddly quiet on the linoleum. The final bell had rung. Kids were streaming out, laughing, shoving lockers closed. Doc's eyes scanned the crowd, looking for that familiar mop of brown hair, for the old leather jacket he'd given Sam last month, a smaller version of his own, the Hells Angels insignia carefully removed, just a plain, beautiful piece of leather. A symbol of protection. Sam had worn it every day. But Sam wasn't in the stream of kids. Doc's gut twisted tighter. He checked the art room empty, the library closing up. He was about to head to the parking lot when he passed the boys' bathroom near the gym. The door was slightly ajar, and he heard a faint, choked sound, a sob. He pushed the door open. The bathroom was cold, smelling of bleach and mildew. One stall at the far end was closed. Doc walked over, his heart a dull drum in his chest. He could see scuffed sneakers under the door, small ones. "Sam," he said, his voice low. The sobbing hitched, then stopped, a terrified silence. "Sammy, it's Dad." The lock slid back with a rusty click. The door opened slowly, Doc's breath caught in his throat. His son was huddled on the closed toilet lid, knees to his chest. His left eye was swollen shut, a nasty purple and red bloom. A trickle of dried blood ran from his split lip. His shirt was torn at the collar, and the jacket was gone. For a long second, Doc just stood there. A cold, black rage, the kind that had settled wars in prison yards and barroom parking lots, began to pulse where his heart should be. But his voice, when he finally spoke, was softer than velvet. "Hey, buddy." Sam looked up, his one good eye brimming with fresh tears. "Dad, you're early." "I had a feeling," Doc said, kneeling down, the denim of his jeans straining. He didn't touch him yet, just got on his level. "Who did this, Sam?" The story came out in broken pieces, between hiccuping sobs. It wasn't a one-time thing, it had been weeks. A kid named Mark, a hulking 8th grader and the star of the football team. It started with lunch money, then it was homework, then it was anything Mark wanted. Sam was his personal ATM and punching bag. He said if I told anyone, it would get worse, Sam whispered, wiping his nose with a trembling hand. He said his uncle owns this town. Doc's eyes narrowed. His uncle. Mr. Ferraro, he's not a teacher, he just comes around. He drives a big black car, he talks to the principal. The teachers are scared of him. Mark said his uncle is connected, that he's mob. A low-level enforcer. Doc knew the type. Pretend kings of small ponds. The Black Rage now had a name, a target. "And the jacket, Sam?" Doc asked, though he already knew. A fresh wave of tears. "He took it today, after he hit me. He said it was too nice for a worm like me. He said it was his trophy now." He laughed. Doc closed his eyes. A trophy. This wasn't just bullying. This was a deliberate, calculated disrespect. Someone had seen the symbol of his family, not the club, but his family, his blood, on his child, and had chosen to strip it away as a prize. This was a challenge from a rival organization, on his son's skin. He opened his eyes. The softness was gone, replaced by a flat, deadly calm. Okay, Sammy, it's over now, you hear me, it's done." He helped Sam up gently and led him out of the stall. He wet some paper towels and cleaned his son's face with a tenderness that belied the storm in his eyes. "We're going home, but first, we're going to make a call." They walked out to the bike. Doc sat Sam on the seat, then pulled his phone from his cut. He didn't scroll. He dialed a number from memory. It picked up on the first ring. "Doc." "James," Doc said, his voice a gravelly command. "It's family, my boy, the Oak Ridge School. I need the table, all of it." There was no hesitation, no question. On the other end, James, the chapter president, simply said, "1 hour." Doc hung up. He looked at Sam, who was shivering despite the warm afternoon. He took off his own heavy, weathered cut, the one with the wings and the death's head, and wrapped it around his son's shoulders. It swallowed him whole. "Wear this for now, it's warmer." Then he made another call. This one was to a woman named Elena. She answered with a smile in her voice. "Daniel, to what do I owe?" "Elena," he cut in, the warmth for her trying to break through the ice. "I need you, my place. Sam's hurt, not bad, but I have to handle something. Can you stay with him?" The smile vanished, replaced by immediate, fierce concern. "I'm on my way, 15 minutes. Is he okay?" "He will be," Doc said, and he meant it in every way possible. "Thank you, sweetheart." There was a charge there, a history and a future in those two words, but he pushed it down. Business first. He got on the bike in front of Sam, feeling his small hands grip the sides of his shirt. As they roared towards his house, the plan crystallized. This wasn't about retrieving a jacket. This was about drawing a line in the sand so deep and so permanent that no one would ever dare cross it again. At the house, Elena was already waiting on the porch, her beautiful face etched with worry. She ran to Sam as he got off the bike, her hands fluttering over his bruised face. "Oh, my Nino," she murmured, pulling him into a hug. She looked over his head at Doc, her dark eyes asking 1,000 questions. Doc walked over and cupped her face, a rare public gesture of affection. "Take care of our boy. I have to go to work. Lock the door. Don't answer for anyone but me." She searched his eyes, saw the unyielding truth in them, and simply nodded. She understood the man and the life, even if she didn't always approve. "You come back in one piece, Daniel, both of you." He gave Sam one more hug, a fierce, tight one. "You're safe, I love you." Then he was back on his bike. He didn't go to the clubhouse. He went to the sprawling, slightly run-down auto shop that served as the chapter's legitimate front. The parking lot in the back was already filling up. One by one they came. The rumble was a gathering earthquake. Choppers, fat boys, street glides rolling in from every direction. Men in cuts, faces set in grim lines. They were mechanics, truck drivers, veterans, ex-cons. They were fathers, uncles, brothers, and right now they were an army. James, a grizzled man with a salt and pepper beard, met Doc at the door. Inside, around a grease-stained workbench that served as their table, the leadership gathered. Doc told them what happened. Not a long story, just the facts. His boy, beaten, the jacket a gift, taken as a trophy, the bully, the uncle, the mob enforcer thinking he owned the school. When he finished, the room was silent, but the air was electric. James spoke first, cleaning his glasses on his shirt. "A school's one thing, but this Ferraro, he's a pimple on the ass of the Luciano crew. They'll see this as an invasion." "It is an invasion," Doc said quietly. "They invaded my family. They put their hands on my son. They disrespect our symbol. This isn't a territory grab. This is a message. Their influence ends at the school gate, permanently." A giant of a man named Paul, who ran the tow truck side, cracked his knuckles. "So we deliver the message, loud and clear." The plan was simple, brutal, and precise. No weapons, not today. This was about overwhelming, intimidating presence. This was about a show of force so absolute it would become legend. 97 bikes. That was the count. Every member who could ride. They would roll to Oak Ridge Middle School tomorrow at 1 p.m., right during the afternoon class change. They would not enter the building violently. They would simply occupy, and they would ask very politely for two things: Mark Ferraro and his uncle, Anthony, the fixer Ferraro. The next day at 12:55 p.m., the sky began to darken with the sound of thunder, but it wasn't thunder. In the principal's office, Principal Davis was having a heated, one-sided conversation with a smug, well-dressed man in a silk suit, Anthony Ferraro. Mark stood beside his uncle, a nasty grin on his face. They were discussing Sam, unfortunate accident, and how it would be best if the matter was dropped. "The boy is clumsy, we all know this," Ferraro was saying, waving a dismissive hand. "My nephew was trying to help him up. A misunderstanding." Then the first roar echoed through the window, then 10, then 50. Principal Davis rushed to the window. His face went white as milk. The parking lot, the street, every available space was filling with a sea of gleaming chrome and black leather. Men were dismounting, not running, but moving with a deliberate, unified purpose. They formed a silent, imposing wall in front of the main entrance. The school's security guard, an elderly man named Walter, peeked out the front door and immediately locked it, retreating inside. Doc and James walked to the main doors. Doc tried the handle, locked. He didn't pound. He just looked through the glass at the terrified face of a secretary staring back. He pointed at the lock, then at his eyes. With trembling hands, she buzzed them open. The two men walked into the eerily quiet lobby. The bell for class change hadn't rung. Someone had wisely locked down the school. Teachers were peering out of classroom doors. Kids were crowding windows. Principal Davis scurried out, Ferraro and Mark trailing behind him, their confidence visibly cracking. "What is the meaning of this?" Davis squeaked. Doc ignored him, his eyes locked on Mark. The boy was big, but he shrunk under that gaze. Doc's eyes flicked to the jacket the boy was wearing over his own Letterman jacket, Sam's leather jacket. "That's my son," Doc said, his voice echoing in the hush. "He gave it to me," Mark blurted, his voice too high. Ferraro stepped forward, trying to regain control. "Now listen here, you can't just storm into a school. I have connections with the school board, with the police commissioner." James sighed, a sound of profound boredom. He took out his phone, made a call, put it on speaker. A voice came on, the police dispatch. "All units, reported disturbance at Oak Ridge Middle School is a false alarm. Repeat, false alarm. No units respond. Code 1088. James hung up. Ferraro's face lost its color. Code 1088 meant officer needs assistance, but used in this way, it was a very clear signal. The police would be delayed, indefinitely. "You were saying about connections," James asked mildly. Doc took a step toward Mark. The boys stumbled back. "The jacket, take it off." Mark, hands shaking, fumbled with the zipper and shed the leather, letting it fall to the floor. Doc walked over, picked it up, folded it carefully over his arm. The act was more menacing than if he'd smashed something. Then he looked at Ferraro. You treat this place like your own little kingdom. You scare teachers. You let your animal of a nephew prey on kids." He took another step. "You touched my son. Your family touched my family." "This is insane," Ferraro sputtered, "over a schoolyard scrap." "No," Doc said, and finally, the rage broke through the calm, cold and sharp. "Over a declaration of war you were too stupid to know you made." He turned to James and gave a single nod. James spoke to the room, his voice carrying. "The school is shut down for the rest of the day. Teachers, take your students back to your classrooms. Close the blinds. This won't take long." Then he walked to the front door and raised his hand. Outside, the wall of 97 men moved. They didn't rush. They flowed into the building in an orderly, terrifying procession. They split into pre-assigned teams, 2 men per hallway, 4 for the gym, 6 for the locker rooms. The message was clear: this was a search, but not for contraband, it was a hunt. Ferraro was grabbed, not roughly, but with immovable force, by Paul and another biker named David. Mark was taken by 2 others. They were marched, not to the office, but to the center of the school, the empty cafeteria. Doc stood before them. The rest of the men formed a silent circle around the perimeter of the large room. "You took something that wasn't yours," Doc said to Mark, his voice now almost conversational. "You hurt someone smaller. You used your uncle's cheap, fake power to feel like a man." He leaned in close. "Let me show you what real power looks like. It doesn't come from a suit. It doesn't come from threatening kids. It comes from the men standing beside you, something you'll never have." He turned to Ferraro. "And you, a made man, you're a messenger boy who got too comfortable. You think your Luciano crew will go to war over you. For a school, They'll cut you loose like a rotten branch. You're bad for business." From the back of the room, a voice called out. It was Mercy, the club's secretary-treasurer, a sharp-eyed man with a laptop. Found his locker, ledger book, lists of kids, payments, some jewelry, a couple phones, and a stack of test answers from the teacher's lounge. Seems our friend Mr. Ferraro had a side business selling those. Principal Davis, who had been forced to watch, gasped. "So," James said, smiling for the first time. It wasn't a nice smile. "Extortion, theft, assault on a minor, academic fraud, and that's just what we found in 10 minutes." Ferraro was sweating now, his silk shirt stained. He knew the game was over. The club wouldn't kill him here, too messy, but they had just dismantled his entire operation and his reputation in front of the entire school. His own crew would see him as a liability, a fool who brought the wrath of a rival motorcycle club down over a child's jacket. He was a dead man walking. "The lesson," Doc said, his voice dropping so everyone had to strain to hear, "is over. This school is now under our protection, not our rule, our protection. That means any kid who gets bullied, any teacher who gets pressured, any little punk who thinks he's a gangster because his uncle drives a black car, they come to us, and we will settle it, permanently." He walked over to Mark, who was crying now. Doc looked down at him with something close to pity. "You're expelled, not by the school, by this town. You show your face here again, you won't like what happens. Now get out, both of you, walk out the front door, don't look back." The circle parted. Ferraro and Mark, broken and defeated, shuffled out through the silent gauntlet of black leather into the afternoon sun where the 97 bikes still waited, a steel and chrome monument to their failure. Doc turned to Principal Davis. "School's yours again. The situation is handled." And with that, the men filed out as orderly as they had entered. The bikes roared to life once more, a deafening crescendo that slowly faded into the distance, leaving behind a stunned silence and a new, unbreakable rule. Back at Doc's house, Elena had made soup. Sam was on the couch, a comic book in his lap, but not really reading it. He jumped when he heard the bikes approaching, but Elena placed a calming hand on his shoulder. Doc walked in, Sam's jacket in his hands. He placed it gently on the coffee table. Then he took his own cut back from the hook by the door and put it on. He sat next to Sam. "It's done, Sammy. It won't happen again. Not to you, not to anyone at that school." Sam looked at him, his good eye wide. "Are you in trouble?" Doc smiled a real smile, the first in days. "No, son, we're the trouble." Elena brought over 2 bowls of soup. She sat on the arm of the couch beside Doc, her hand resting on the back of his neck, her fingers playing with his hair. A simple touch, charged with relief and something deeper. "You hungry, trouble?" she asked softly. Later, after Sam was asleep, Doc sat on the porch with Elena. The night was quiet. "You scared me today," she said, not looking at him. "I know. But you did it for him." "I did it because it was right." She finally looked at him, her eyes gleaming in the porch light. "That's why I love you, Daniel, even when you're a terrifying bastard." He pulled her to him and they kissed, a long, slow kiss that spoke of homecoming and fierce possession. It was heated, adult, a promise of what would come later when the house was quiet. But it was also safe, full of a love that had weathered storms. "The club, you don't give it up, do you?" she whispered against his lips, an old question. He held her tight, looking out at the dark street where for a few hours that afternoon an empire had rolled through to defend its youngest subject. "No, sweetheart, we don't give up our empire, but we expand it, to include him, to include you. That's what today was about, drawing the line around what's ours." And as they sat there in the quiet, the distant echo of 97 engines seemed to hang in the air, a warning to the world and a lullaby to those within the circle. The quiet that settled over the town in the days that followed was a heavy, waiting kind of quiet. The story of the shutdown spread like a grass fire, morphing into legend in the retelling. Some kids swore they'd seen guns, they hadn't. Teachers murmured about bikers paying off the mayor, they didn't need to. The only truth that mattered was the result. Mark Ferraro was gone, whisked away to some distant relative's house out of state. His uncle, Anthony, simply vanished. Rumor had it the Luciano crew, furious at the unwanted attention and the sheer amateurishness of his blunder, had reassigned him to a long-term, quiet job, likely counting inventory in a warehouse where no one asked questions. At Oak Ridge Middle School, a new, unspoken order reigned. The bullies had grown timid. The teachers stood a little taller, and if a kid was seen crying in the hall, it wasn't uncommon for an older student to awkwardly ask if they were okay, glancing nervously toward the windows as if expecting to see a line of Harleys. The school was, as Doc had declared, under protection. Sam wore his jacket to school the next Monday. The kids parted for him in the hall, not with fear, but with a kind of awe. He wasn't just Sam anymore, he was the kid whose dad had an army. He tried to shrink from the attention, but a strange thing happened. A girl named Jessica from his art class smiled at him and asked if he wanted to sit together at lunch. He did. Life at home developed a new rhythm. Elena was there more often. Her relationship with Doc had always been a slow burn, complicated by his life and her cautious heart. She was a nurse, a woman who dealt in fixes and clean bandages. His world was messier, but seeing him as a father, a protector, seeing the raw, uncompromising love that had summoned an army for his son, had melted the last of her reservations. One evening, a week after the shutdown, they were in Doc's kitchen. He was trying to follow her recipe for lasagna, making a spectacular mess. Flour was on his jeans, sauce on his t-shirt. "You know," Elena said, leaning against the counter, her arms crossed and a smirk on her lips. "For a man who can command 100 outlaws, you are tragically helpless with a cheese grater." Doc held up the block of mozzarella and the grater, frowning. "The cheese is resisting. It's a tactical situation." She laughed, a warm, rich sound that filled the room. She walked over, standing behind him, her front to his back. She reached around, her hands covering his on the grater. "Slow and steady," she murmured, her breath warm against his ear. "You don't force it, you guide it." A different kind of tension filled the air, thick and sweet. He could feel the curve of her against him. He turned his head, and her lips were right there. The kiss started soft, a thank you for the lesson, but deepened quickly, filled with the promise of the night to come. It was charged, full of a heat that had been building for years. He turned fully, his hands, now dusty with flour, coming to rest on her hips, pulling her close. The moment was broken by the sound of Sam's footsteps thundering down the stairs. They broke apart, but Elena kept a hand on his chest, her eyes bright. "Later," she whispered, a delicious threat. Sam burst into the kitchen, his face animated. "Dad, Paul's here. He's got his tow truck and he says he's got a surprise." Doc raised an eyebrow. Paul's surprises usually involved greasy engine parts. He wiped his hands and followed Sam outside. Paul's tow truck was idling in the driveway. In the back, covered by a tarp, was a small, lumpy shape. Paul, a mountain of a man with a beard that housed several small ecosystems, grinned like a kid on Christmas. "For the young recruit," he boomed, walking to the back. With a flourish, he pulled off the tarp. It was a motorcycle, but not a full-sized one. It was a vintage, restored Honda minibike, painted a deep, glossy black. It was perfect for a 12-year-old, not a toy, but a real, small-engine machine. Sam's jaw dropped. "Whoa." "Club project," Paul said, clapping a massive hand on Doc's shoulder. The prospects worked on it, tuned her up sweet. Safety first, of course. Helmet and pads are in the cab. Thought he could learn in the empty lot down the street, with supervision. He gave Doc a significant look. Doc looked from the bike to his son's radiant, hopeful face. This was a rite of passage, a different kind of leather jacket. He felt a lump in his throat. "Well," he said, his voice rough, "you can't learn to ride a Harley without learning the basics first. What do you say, Sam?" Sam could only nod, speechless. The following Saturday was spent in the gravel lot. Doc, James, Paul, and a few others were there, a semicircle of leather-clad instructors. They taught Sam how to check the oil, how to start it, how to use the clutch. They cheered when he putted in a shaky first circle and roared with laughter when he stalled it. Elena watched from a picnic blanket, shaking her head with a smile. As the sun set, Sam, now confidently doing loops, called out, "Dad, watch this." He gave a little more throttle, a tiny bit of speed. In that moment, Doc saw it. Not a scared boy in a bathroom stall, but a young man finding his balance, surrounded by a family that was far more than just a club. He felt Elena's arm slip around his waist, her head leaning on his shoulder. "He's going to be okay," she said softly. "He already is," Doc replied. That night, after Sam was asleep, dreams no doubt full of engines and open roads, Doc and Elena sat on the porch again. The silence between them was comfortable, alive. "James called," Doc said, staring out at the street. "The Luciano crew sent a message through back channels." Elena tensed, and they said the Ferraro matter is considered closed. They apologize for the indiscretion of their associate. They have no interest in escalating over a schoolyard issue, he snorted. "That's mob speak for we're embarrassed and we're cutting our losses." "So it's really over." "For them, yes. For us," he took her hand. "This life, Elena, it's not just the bad, it's this. It's Paul giving up his weekend to build a bike for a kid he barely knows. It's James making a call to keep the cops away so a father can do what he needs to do. It's a brotherhood. It's an empire, like I said, and empires protect their own." She was quiet for a long time. "I want to be one of your own, Daniel, fully. Sam already is." He looked at her, his heart hammering. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm not just the girlfriend who comes over. I'm saying my toothbrush has lived in your bathroom for 6 months. I'm saying I love your son like he's my own. And I'm saying I'm tired of being scared of your patch." She took a deep breath. "I want in." He pulled her onto his lap, cradling her face. "You've always been in, you just didn't have the patch." He kissed her, a kiss that sealed a pact. "Move in, officially, let's be a family. My empire is yours." The following month, the club threw a barbecue. It was a chaotic, joyful affair at the auto shop yard. Music blared, burgers smoked on a giant grill, and kids weaved between bikes and laughing adults. Sam was showing off his minibike to a group of other club kids. Elena was in the thick of it, handing out plates of potato salad, being effortlessly absorbed into the fold of old ladies and sisters. They teased her about finally making an honest man out of Doc. Doc watched it all from a lawn chair, a cold beer in his hand. James settled into the chair next to him. "Peace looks good on you," James said. "It's not peace," Doc corrected, a small smile on his face. "It's just a calm day in the Empire." James nodded, understanding. The school board is quietly hiring a new security firm, one with no connections to us or the Lucianos. Clean slate. "Good. The kid's doing good," stands taller. "He is." James sipped his beer. "And you and Elena." Doc's eyes found her across the yard. She was laughing at something Mercy's wife, Stella, was saying, her head thrown back, the sun catching in her dark hair. She felt his gaze and looked over. The smile she sent him was private, full of love and a hint of the heat they'd shared the night before. It was a look that promised a future. "We are solid," Doc said, his voice thick with feeling. The barbecue wound down as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in oranges and purples. One by one, families left, the rumble of their bikes a friendly, departing sound. Doc, Elena, and Sam were among the last to go. As Doc helped Sam secure the minibike in the back of Paul's pickup for a ride home, not on the road yet, Elena walked over to James, who was locking up the shop. "James," she said, "thank you." He looked at her, genuine warmth in his eyes. "For what?" "For having his back, for having our backs." He nodded once, a gesture of deep respect. "Family, Elena, that's all it is. Welcome to it." The ride home was quiet, Sam asleep in the backseat of Elena's car, exhausted from the day. Doc rode alongside them on his Harley, a lone sentinel under the emerging stars. Later, in the dark of their bedroom, Elena traced the lines of the winged skull tattoo on Doc's shoulder. "It doesn't scare me anymore," she whispered. "I see it now. It's not a threat. It's a promise that you'll always come home, that you'll always protect what's yours." He rolled over, looking down at her. "Always." Their kiss was a slow, deep exploration, a conversation without words. His hands, so often clenched around handlebars or tools, were tender on her skin. Her touch was both soothing and electrifying. They moved together with a rhythm that was both new and ancient, a claiming and a surrender. The room was filled with the sound of their shared breath, with soft sighs and whispered names. It was charged, intensely physical and emotional, a celebration of life and love after a season of violence and fear. It was raw, real, and profoundly intimate, a union that solidified everything the day had promised. After, as they lay tangled in the sheets, the moonlight streaming through the window, Elena spoke into the darkness. "The Empire," she said, "it's not a place, is it?" "No," Doc murmured, his lips against her hair. "It's not a place, it's the people. It's the line you draw in the sand and the men who stand on it with you. It's the woman who chooses to stand there too. It's the kid sleeping down the hall who knows he's safe." He held her tighter. "We don't give it up. We build it bigger, every day." And outside, in the peaceful suburban night, all was quiet. No roaring engines, no cries for help, just the soft chirp of crickets and the distant hum of the city. But the message had been sent, received, and understood. The hierarchy was clear, and within the walls of a simple house, an emperor, his queen, and their prince slept safe, their kingdom secure, built not on fear, but on the unshakable foundation of loyalty and love. Thank you for riding with us on this story. Did this father's justice feel right to you? What would you have done? Subscribe and smash that like button if you believe in protecting family at all costs. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from.